all the talk about Venezuela. I think you've spoken about this on the podcast as well. Venezuela is now, are they making rumblings that they might fight back the United States of America just because Trump is taking out some of their narco-terrorist boats that are coming over? What are you hearing?
Well, what we're hearing is that apparently, in response to the buildup of military assets that the U.S. has been doing in the Caribbean, and much of it off the coastline of Venezuela, including the Gerald R. Ford, the USS carrier and the strike group that accompanies it. It looks like Maduro's plan is his officers and his military, such as it is, they know they can't go toe-to-toe, right, with the U.S. military. That's obvious. Right? In fact, one of their officers actually made the comment, said we wouldn't last 2 hours in a direct conflict with the U.S. military. So it looks like they're planning, according to reporting, is that what they would do is more of a guerrilla tactic, right? They would disperse their military units out in the field. They'd be looking to sabotage, create chaos. They'd use their civilian militias, with the whole idea being, or so they're saying, to create this instability and almost an ungovernable country. And what I believe the Maduro regime is hoping that putting that information out there would do is dissuade the U.S. government from actually directly engaging the Maduro regime, with the idea being, well, we don't want to step into that mess.
I will tell you the smart money, and you look for different cues and clues what's really going on. If the world really thought that there was going to be any sort of major conflict with Venezuela, or that they would be able to put up any sort of fight, you would see oil prices spike. Now, Venezuela is one of the major producers of oil. They have a lot of oil in their under their ground. They've let it dilapidate, the oil industry. It's to the point where they're producing about half of what they actually could. But if it were a situation where the U.S. wanted to go in and say, we're going to replace Maduro, we're going to put in whomever, and by the way, for that, we're going to reinvigorate your oil infrastructure, you would see the oil prices fluctuating. Yesterday, oil went down almost $3 a barrel. So no one believes anything that's coming out of the Middle East. Question is, do we, and we just heard there was another narco boat, I think the narco terrorist 20th boat that was blown out of the water in the last, I believe, 48 hours or so. What's the end game with this, Mike? Because as someone who's lost a child to fentanyl, as horrible as that is, and fentanyl, and hate everything that's going on with these drug boats coming over, it's just, the libertarian in me doesn't like the U.S. going into foreign waters and killing foreigners. It just doesn't feel like it's the right thing to do. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I take your point entirely. Right, there's a lot of discomfort building around the world, certainly in Latin America, and with our allies, our closest allies. Look, I mean, some reports have indicated that the Brits, the UK government has kind of clamped down on their intelligence sharing with the U.S. over their discomfort over these strikes in the Caribbean. Canada has expressed discontent, the EU obviously, but the EU explain, they're always complaining about something the U.S. is doing. Right. I think that the problem we've got is that we're in completely, no pun intended, uncharted waters. Right now, we've been fighting supposedly for decades a war on drugs, and it never really was a war. I was involved in counter-narcotics operations with the agency for quite a while, and you never changed the dynamic. Right, it never made a difference. You could blow up all the gear, all the drugs you wanted to in some factory or site overseas. Never changed the street price. Never changed the volume of what was housed in warehouses around the both in the U.S. and overseas. So it never really felt like you were winning that supposed war. And I think what's happening now is the Trump administration has decided, look, let's make it an actual war. Let's try something different. Now, I'm not against killing narco traffickers, right? But I do think that they've stepped into an area here that leaves them somewhat vulnerable. And part of it is their lack of transparency, not explaining who these targets are to the degree that they can without releasing sources and methods, but not providing enough information to say, yeah, because I think the average American would be behind it if they understood, okay, we get it. We understand. We've seen the evidence. These are legitimate targets. But still, we're going to get a lot of pushback from the international community. And whether we care about that or not, Secretary of State Marco Rubio just finished the G7 meeting, and he basically told the attendees there, we don't need a permission slip from the international community to protect national interests here in the U.S.